Their belief is that they're the only authority of God on this earth, and everyone will answer to them. At the end of time, everyone who's not doing what they say will be killed by God. That's their belief at Armageddon.
Yeah, sounds feasible. Bill, you know, when I read these doctrines, how do people that, certainly, let's face one thing. The Catholic Church, they go to a seminary, they have the same devout standards that all other priests do. They have certain obligations, certain tests, certain things, certain stages. There is a educated hierarchy that in not only general education, but in the church. Now, it seems like the Jehovah's Witness, it sounds like you know, in some regards, and don't take this wrong, I don't want anybody to take this wrong, but it's almost like the inmates are running the prison.
Well, no, I need to clarify that. Every 4 years, the church conducts what they call an elder school, in which they call their elders in to meetings all across, or actually around the world, for a day-and-a-half seminar on procedures and policies of the church. So at this point, they're advised on how they are to operate within the church, and they have to acquiesce. Any indecision has to acquiesce to the home office in Brooklyn, New York, which is called their service department and our legal departments.
Does that mean if they kind of deviate from doctrine or they haven't memorized the right thing, then their name's turned in and they're in trouble?
Oh yeah, you can immediately lose your eldership. When that person at the legal department told me to wait upon Jehovah by disobeying his direction, then I immediately would have been disqualified as an elder. So I just resigned because I saw the handwriting on the wall. I couldn't continue to serve as an elder and protect a child molester.
Well, let's go back to the basic reason. Okay, we've set the stage. We have no educated or no standards of education. And I think it's important that anybody that is a leader needs a basic education that matures them and enlightens them in even subjects they don't want to study, makes a well-rounded person. 4 years of college is required to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be an accountant, and in a lot of regards to be a priest. First you go to 4 years of college, then you go to a seminary. I think that's important, and that's not present. But the doctrines here basically say that they are going to protect all people that abuse other people, even people in the congregation abusing each other or each other's children, or elders or anybody in the church and the staff abusing any other children. What is the motivation to protect child abusers?
Well, you have to understand, in the Jehovah's Witness theology, they teach that 1 John 5:19 says the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one, which basically means the world as we know it, the governments, everyone, is controlled ultimately by Satan, which include the media, which is you, Mark. So they believe that all members must therefore only associate and have interaction with fellow Jehovah's Witnesses who are considered the chosen ones of of this earth. So when you put that in the context of child abuse, if a person as a member of the church has a child that's abused, then they have to go to the elders to get the answers. Why would you go to Satan's world when you have the elders who are directed by God, who are designed to oversee such matters as wrongdoing?
You know, it sounds like smoke and mirrors, mumbo-jumbo, sounds like the Wizard of Oz. But you know, what's really interesting when I hear that? David Koresh and all of his followers died in a fiery death for about 1/10 of the radical views that I just heard. I hope they don't build a farm and say they're not paying taxes and have a couple of M14s on their property.
Well, they already got a farm. They got about 5,000 acres in upstate New York.
Well, they better not upset the FBI. Bill, hang on there. We got more to go on this. You want to call in? Do so now. We set the stage. Some of it's up to you. You listen to the Mark Furman Show on 920 KXLY.
You have the right to remain silent. Except on this show. Mark Furman is on your radio now.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking about the Jehovah's Witnesses. It doesn't sound too good. In fact, it sounds a lot worse than anything I heard in the Catholic Church. At least in the Catholic Church, they're realizing that something was done wrong. I will say that. There may be cover-ups, and there may be movement to try to hide people, try to get them help. Maybe they believe, I don't care. It's all wrong, but this sounds almost wrong from the very onset, that there's no possible way they're going to acknowledge anything. My guest is Bill Bowen. He's a former Jehovah's Witness elder from Benton, Kentucky. Bill, you know, when you look at the situation that's going on in the Catholic Church, and then all I have to do is listen to the first 10 minutes I talk to you, it sounds like the Jehovah's Witnesses aren't going to recognize anybody abused a child, no matter how bad it is.
Well, when I started my little organization called Silent Lambs, it was a measure to try to reach out to victims of abuse. If no one had come to me, I would have discontinued the organization and not done anything more. I have had over 6,000 Jehovah's Witness victims of abuse come to me and talk about being molested as children. There's over 1,000 stories posted on my website. These victims are not lying. And yet the organization has taken the stance that they've done nothing wrong. Last year they excommunicated 6 people that simply spoke to the media and said it happened to them or that there was a problem in the church. So their stance is not only have they done nothing wrong, but they will, in the biblical context, stone anybody to death that says otherwise.
You know, Bill, you sound like a smart guy. How'd you get mixed up with this kind of ideology?
Well, I was born and raised as Jehovah's Witness from the moment of my birth, a second generation. So I never knew anything else. It was a way of life for me that I firmly believed in and supported. And on the side of fairness, you got to understand there's many good people in the religion who are Jehovah's Witnesses that are required to follow these tenets. Now, they're trying to raise their kids. They're trying to be good people and be honest. But they have to follow this policy directed by the governing body. If they do not, then they lose their family, their friends, and their life.
Well, they don't lose their family and their friends, because if they lost them over an issue of they're going to go out public because somebody's raping a child, they were never their family and friends to begin with.
Well, within the organization, it's all conditional on the directives of the church. When I came forward, my parents no longer spoke to me anymore. I lost 40 family members in the organization and hundreds of friends that I had known all my life within the Jehovah's Witness community. Now I'm viewed as dead. If my mother walked into the same room that I was, she would not even acknowledge my existence. That's the way they treat people that don't follow what they tell them to do.
Well, you know, Bill, do you see it the way I see it? I couldn't tolerate 30 seconds of that attitude. It's fanatical mumbo jumbo. It belongs in some circus, some sideshow, along with the bearded lady and the tattooed man.
Well, you know, I have to understand that the purpose of my coming forward on abuse is not to try to put Jehovah's Witnesses out of business or just to try to promote the religion.
But why not? It sounds like they don't have a place in religion. It's not religion. It's fanaticism.
Oh, if people aren't in one religion, just like you mentioned, there's probably still followers of David Koresh. There's probably still guys following Jim Jones, even as we speak.
But they're not as fanatical as what you've described. That's what's odd about it.
Well,
well, let me ask you another way to ask this question, Bill. You know, I do see that if people weren't born in a religion, they would have certainly questioned it when they're 19 or 20 or 15. All of a sudden they're confronted with these issues where they've already become somewhat worldly, or at least able to make their own decisions. Do you think that you could have gone into Jehovah's Witness at 18 years old and not questioned the reasoning behind the church?
I think if I'd have been approached at 18 to become a Jehovah's Witness, as a young person, who knows? You know, when you first become acquainted with Jehovah's Witnesses, they're very nice people, and they talk to you about being a brother, and, you know, like a member of their family, and that you have the hope of a paradise earth. It's a very convincing ideology to follow. So, I don't know. You know, perhaps I would have joined up with it, but now with my life's experience in the last 2 years, what I have seen that they're willing to do and willing to be untruthful about to the media as well as to their own members. No, I have no question in my mind that I couldn't be part of this because it's corrupt.
It's corrupted, it's criminal. Bill, when we look at what the Catholic Church has been involved in, I don't see any incidents where you have parishioners violating parishioners or parishioners absolutely knowing of abuse that they can absolutely state it occurred and be silent because the church says so. But yet, in the Jehovah's Witness, that's exactly what they're supposed to do, isn't it?
Well, as we've shown time and again through documentary programs and otherwise, victims come forward and say that when they went to their elders, they were told to be silent. And how they were silenced is they were told that they had to produce 2 eyewitnesses when the molester denied that he molested them. And many times this was 4, 5, 6-year-old children, and no one has an eyewitness when you're in that type of situation.
Well, you know, women and children, unfortunately, in this society, maybe all societies, virtually have no power. When it comes down to believing, you have a system like the Jehovah's Witness and a lot of organizations, just to say organizations, where you have men in charge and you have men that make the rules, when